Good morning, everyone. Here we are again. I'm Rosemary Altea, if you didn't know it already. I'm here with my spirit guide. Let's do this again. I'm here with my spirit guide, Gregor, who is to my right side. To my middle right, should I say, I've got Cachorro. Now, you'll know if he starts to puff and pant, we are going to put him away. And if you do hear him yelping, I love dogs. I don't beat my dog. You'd think sometimes the noises he makes that I do beat him, but I promise you I don't. To my far right, I've got Carolyn to say good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning, Carolyn.
And just so you all wonder what on earth is going on, we're actually trying to an experiment here. We're trying to record the show in Italian. Once we've done it in Italian, we'll try it in other languages as well. But so far, it's not working, is it, or is it? Give it to me.
It's in the test stage still.
Anyway, we're testing it, so we are trying to do different language, and then let's get on with the show. Then after this, we have Cachorro, who is, yes, he's up and about and he's puffing and panting already, and we also have my good friend Al Pisano. I'll say good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Now, I think, do I need to click on me just in case? All right, so we're good. We're set, right? Okay. All right, so what's happened with you this week, Al? Anything? Nothing?
Nope. Busy week, but all good stuff.
Well, we've had hurricanes here in Florida. I think we had a little tornado going around yesterday as well, somewhere or another. Unfortunately, the hurricane has caused a lot of devastation. And so on our healing page this morning, when we did our 11 a.m. healing prayer, we of course were saying prayers for all of those who are affected by Hurricane Michael. So we do please ask all of you to join with us, to send your prayers, to send your good wishes, and if any of you can help in any other way. I know that there's been a lot of evacuations. A lot of people unfortunately stayed because people didn't realize it was going to be a category 4, and a category 4 is pretty bad. Actually, I think the highest is a 5, so it was a category 4 and not so good. So please send all of your prayers, lots of love, and so on and so forth to all of those affected by it.
I'm sorry, Adrian just messaged us and said, please pray for me and my family and everyone affected with the storm in Panama City. My house is gone, and she's so upset.
Oh, Adrian? Adrian, darling. I'm so sorry. And again, this is just, one person. We have had a lot of people contacting us who have been affected. Adrian, our prayers and our thoughts are with you. We're so sorry that you've lost your house. We're hoping that that something more serious did not happen to you, because, a house, it's easy for me to sit here in my comfortable house and say this to you, but a house is just a material thing. People's lives, when people are affected, then it's much, much worse. So I'm hoping that you're all safe, that you all keep safe, and understand that, you can rebuild a house, darling, but, gather your family close to you, because that's the most important thing. Our prayers are with you, and thank you for finding the time through all of this trauma for yourself. Thank you for finding the time to let us know that. Please email me, rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com, and let me know how you're doing, and let me know, if there's anything that we can do to help. Please let us know. We're going to be putting out, our thoughts, our prayers, and our healing energy to all of you who are affected. I spoke yesterday with someone actually in Panama City, and when I spoke to them, everything was fine and calm. So this must have been something that happened after I'd spoken to my person. So, all right. So I know that lots of you have questions, but if you could take a minute, I'm also going to remind you, as I did last week, again, we've had people saying, you don't answer our questions, you pass over me. I've been trying to ask this question for so long, and I've advised you, if you want your question to be answered, put it in early, because we do go down, right, Al? We do go down the list. We take people in the order, we take the questions in the order that they come in. And right, Al, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, that is correct. I think sometimes when we're wrapping up the show, some questions come in after that, and we don't get to those, but you could always ask them the next week.
It's true. And it's a funny thing you should say that, because when I obviously used to live in England, and when I did my events in England, we might have 100 people, we might have 1,000 people, we'd have theatres filled with people. And I would say, if you want to ask a question, put your hand up. And of course, I was giving messages then throughout the evening to my audiences. And the British, we're known for our reticence. We're known to be a little bit shy in some ways. You never think it if you knew me, would you? But we are known for our reticence. But it was amazing, because at some point as the evening progressed, people started to realize that if they asked a question, they would be likely to get a message. And so, I'd say any questions, and nobody's hands would go up. And I'd ask again, and maybe one or two. And by the end of the evening, everybody was scrabbling. Oh my God, I've only got a few more minutes. Everybody was scrabbling to put their hands up to ask a question. And it's a little bit like this show. You can't, if you do it at the end of the show, we won't have time for you. So don't be reticent about asking your question. And any question is a question that we will be willing to consider. That I would be willing to consider to answer. That doesn't mean I'm going to answer them all. Some I can't answer, some I don't know how to answer, but I'll do my best to answer as many questions as I possibly can. Don't be reticent. Don't think, oh, the show's nearly over, I'm going to quickly ask this question, because the chances are we should pass you by. We will not look at those questions. We do not keep them for next week. You have to come back next week and try again. But if you get in there early, the chances are we shall pay attention to you. So with no further chattering, let's I've got something on my mind this morning, so I'm trying to push that out of the way. I'll talk to you about that in a bit, maybe, or maybe not. Al, can we have our first question?
We can. And actually, I think it may have been a question from last week that wasn't answered, but I'm not positive. Terry asks, do earthbound spirits stay here, or can they go from here to the other side?
To earthbound spirits. Oh, we did have a sort of a similar question. It's actually a good question. Who answered that? Was it Carrie, did you say?
Terry.
Good morning, Terry. We did have a sort of a similar question, I think, a few weeks ago. When you pass into the spirit world, or let's put it this way, let's say when your spirit leaves your body, when you die, when your physical body dies, we have choices. At that moment in time, we have choices. The majority of us, without even thinking about it, we know where we're going. We know where we want to go. Even if our death is sudden, even if it's really, really fast, we know, because we are of the light. We are part of the light. And so all we want to do is speed back home, as I call it. We speed back to the light. But there are those, and some of you will call them earthbound spirits, people who, for whatever reason, and there are, believe me, a variety of reasons why somebody might not want to leave this earth. They might feel that they want to stay with someone, close to them. They might be attached to the house. They might have suffered a trauma. There are dozens and dozens of reasons why people might decide that they're not ready yet, or they're not going to go yet. And I did tell a story, and I'm not sure if it was last week or the week before, about a little girl who I was able to help to cross to the light, because basically she'd sort of sat there midway, let's say in the tunnel is the best way to say it, not you know, she was sort of part way. She'd left her body. She couldn't go back, but she didn't want to go forward because she didn't want to leave her mother and so on and so forth. It's a precocious little thing. She'd been sick for a long time. She was a darling, really. And the only way I think I told this story, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but the only way I could actually persuade her to go was by telling her that she couldn't go. She was one of those kids. You can't do that. Yes, I can. You know, that sort of kid. But it was her choice to stay because, you know, she just didn't want to leave her mummy. And she was afraid, she wasn't quite sure, you know, what was going to happen and so on and so forth. But of course, as soon as someone who decides for whatever reason that they want to hang around this earth, and we have it when people, you know, we call them haunted houses when somebody is you know, haunting a building, or it's usually because they've got some unfinished business that they want to deal with and it's not been dealt with yet, and so on. If you read The Eagle and the Rose, there are lots of stories. And well, actually, I shouldn't say just The Eagle and the Rose. If you read my books, there are lots of stories in the pages where people have just not, for whatever reason, wanted to go, and where I have helped people to actually cross over into the light. But once they, you know, decide that that's what they want to do, or if they are persuaded, or if somebody can, and it's usually someone in the spirit world who comes to me or comes to Greg and says, will you help this? Will you help my sister? Will you help my mother? So on and so forth. And those people will have help once they decide for themselves that, you know, they've hung about here long enough and it's time to go home. Then we can easily help them over. So I think the answer briefly is yes, I think. After all of that, yes, it is very possible and very likely that even earthbound spirits will find their way home at some point or another. Carolyn.
Nicole has a question.
Good morning, Nicole.
Do you connect with your family in the spirit world? Does your mom try to connect with you? Do you guys communicate? I know that you said you had a bad relationship growing up. Has she apologized?
But, you know, that's 4 questions. I just want to point that out. But can you see, I don't know if you can see, looks like I've got black on my finger. I actually was chopping with a big chopper some chicken, and I didn't cut my finger chopping. I made the arroz con pollo, which is the chicken with rice. You'll see that on a video. If you go to Rosemary's Kitchen, you'll see that. But actually, when I was drying, I washed the chopper and I was drying it, and somehow or another, I did this. And it was sharp, so it cut me. It hurt. It's fine now, though. Just want you to know why I've got a black finger there. What was I saying about this? Yes, that's 4 questions there. Let's do them one at a time. Do I talk to my family in the spirit world? I'm very fortunate, actually, in that I only actually have known well a couple of people in my family who have passed, and that is my daddy, and that is also my brother Terry. And yes, my dad is around me often, and he's in the kitchen with me. He's always in the kitchen with me, and when we do Rosemary's Kitchen, he's always around, just giving me his little tips and hints, because he taught me how to cook a turkey. He just, you know, he's always in the kitchen with me. So yes. And I talked to my brother too, not so much, but yes. The second question is,
does your mom try to connect with you?
No, and that's not probably anything to do with her, but that is to do with me. As much as I really do want her to be happy, I would like nothing more than for her to find peace and harmony and happiness in her life. But I made a decision a long time ago, while she was still on this earth, that I couldn't deal with the negativity and the meanness. I think it was the meanness that really got to me. And there are 2 things I can't stand in this world, or any world, if it comes to that. I cannot stand meanness, and I cannot stand unkindness, which is the same thing, and I cannot stand injustice of any kind. And when I see it going on, I always have to stand up and say my piece. I try to do it in a nice way, but it doesn't always work. But I made a decision that, you know, I want my mother to have peace and I want her to have harmony, but I also, yeah, I want peace and harmony too. So I don't want to get into that stuff. I'm sure there'll be time in the future when I see her and maybe we'll talk and maybe we won't, who knows. And it's not that I don't want to talk to her because I have any resentments towards her whatsoever, because I don't. I just don't want the negativity. There was a third and fourth question very quickly. What were they?
That was.
You passed it by, haven't you?
Has she apologized?
No, and she doesn't need to. Absolutely, she doesn't need to. She did what she knew. We all live our lives, you know, and I've got a trillion things to apologize for. We don't need to say we're sorry. We just have to change our attitude. Everything is attitude, right, Al? We need to change our attitude, and we just need to make our now, in this moment, and our future. We have to make that the best we can make it. I think there was a fourth question, but I think I'm done with it anyway. All right. So, Al, question.
We have a question from Brother Nate.
Good morning, Brother Nate. Thank you for the recipe.
He says hello to everyone.
And I have to tell you, Brother Nate, I couldn't possibly eat that. I bet it's delicious. But all that sugar, you obviously have a very sweet tooth. That is, of course, if you have any teeth left. Go ahead. Let's have his question.
In the spirit world, are there sulfur souls allowed in the spirit world to freely run amok, wreaking havoc on others like they do now on Earth? So the sulfur souls.
That is such a good question, Nate. It's such a good question. The answer is I'm not entirely sure. So I'm asking Grey Eagle, and they basically have their own dark place. I'm sure they run amok amongst each other, but they have their own dark place, the same as those of us who go to the light. And if a sulfur soul, a dark soul, if you've read soul signs, you know what we're talking about here. And if you haven't read soul signs, email us and we'll let you know where you can get that from. Yes, it's Karen's favorite book. I always say that. But a dark soul, or a soul that is turned dark, can actually enter the light, but only when you enter the light, any one of us, we see ourselves as we really are. And, you know, I ask God to help those who want to go into the light, who want to be embraced by the light, but who are afraid because of the dark deeds that they have done. A sulfur soul is something entirely different. Again, a sulfur soul has no inclination to go into the light, except, as you said, to wreak havoc. But no, they're not. They're not allowed in now. I'm just checking with Greg, and he tells me that's right. So I bet they do cause havoc in their own little world, because that's what they live for, don't they? But there we are. Let's have our next question now. Sorry, Karen.
Starshine.
Good morning, Starshine.
Has a request and would be so grateful for all your healing prayers.
Okay. I'm getting nervous.
She will be having surgery next Wednesday, and she's feeling a little uneasy with it.
Of course. You want us to send you healing, right? Is that right? Mm-hmm. Of course we will. If you can email me and Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com. If you can tell us the time that you're going down for surgery, you can tell us, if you'd like, what the surgery is for. I have Grey Eagle putting his hand on my shoulder, so this is unexpected. He tells me to tell you, don't worry, it's going to go fine. Little bit longer recovery than you might have thought, but that's okay. It's going to be fine. You are going to be fine, Star. Don't worry, my little shining star. You'll be fine, and certainly we'll be with you in that moment. So let us know the day and roughly the time that you're having your surgery. Al.
Dean asks a question.
Good morning, Dean.
I'm
waiting for the comment. from Dean about the arroz con pollo.
I don't see it yet, but I have to. He said it's snowing here today. We just had our first snow in Colorado yesterday.
What? What?
Yeah, we did. We did. Yeah, believe it or not. So nothing accumulated, but it was snowing throughout the day.
It's only October. Oh my God.
He has a really interesting question. When there are mass deaths at the same time and place, do the souls see and talk to each other?
That is a good question, Dean. Thank you. And I have witnessed many times. I've witnessed mass deaths. I've witnessed airplane disasters. The Lockerbie airplane, which was in the 60s or 70s, I think, something like that. Where a plane went down. I've been, I know this is going to freak some of you out, but I've been inside the ovens at Auschwitz and been with all of those people who were burned in the ovens. I've actually stood with two brothers, watched them and watched all those others. They were jammed together like sardines in a can. They put as many people as they could possibly put into the ovens, and then, and it was pitch black, and yes, people talk to each other. They hold hands. Initially, of course, in situations like that, there's a lot of fear. There's also a lot of confusion with the 9/11 bombings. I was actually in the Twin Towers witnessing to explain to those of you wondering how did she get there and how could that happen. It's very easy, because when I give consultations, or when I talk to people who've been involved, or they've lost someone who's been involved in mass exodus, let's say, very often I will, in my books, I refer to it as going down and back and through the hole. And what happens is, even as this can happen in an audience full of people, it can happen in my home, it can happen anywhere, but it's almost as if there is part of me that is able to go back out of my body, back and down, and through the tunnel that separates the time and space. And I'm able to go back. I know it sounds weird, but I'm able to go back through time and space to witness, exactly what happened to someone. I'm able to stand by the roadside and watch as a car comes around the road and there's a major crash. I'm able to actually even go into somebody's kitchen and say, you've got cracked towels on your kitchen sink, you need to get them fixed. All sorts of little things. But yes, because I'm able to do that, going down and back and through the hole, through time and space. And I've never heard of anyone else doing that, and I've never ever spoken to anyone else who can do that. Maybe it's something that Grey Eagle and I do, and he helps me to do that. We do that together. But basically what it does, it enables me, it allows me to see exactly what is happening, what happened, why it happened, how it happened. I was with I went into a house fire at one point. It was one of the most moving and emotional experiences of my life, where there were 4 children. And I can remember meeting an angel in that house. It was an furnace. It was burning. It was just, and it was impossible to rescue everybody. And I looked at this beautiful creature. She was holding 2 children in her arms, and she looked at me and she said, two will be saved and 2 will come home with me. And there were 4 children, and 2 children died. And much later on, after that particular instance, I met the father who had tried to rescue those children. And he was severely burned himself, and I met him in an audience in Canada, actually full of people, and he came with me to the green room afterwards, and we sat and we talked for a long, long time. So yes, people do, they talk. There's often a lot of confusion. There's often a lot of fear. The thing that is the most amazing to me is there's usually very little pain. It's more the pain of knowing that they're leaving and leaving behind their loved ones, and it's more the pain of the confusion and wondering what is happening next. But that confusion, in my experience, lasts it's a momentary thing, because then all of a sudden, as with the experience that I had in Auschwitz in the ovens, you can imagine that the gas ovens were very dark. You couldn't barely see one in front of the other. There were two brothers that I was the reason I was there. These two brothers, and they were squished together, but they were holding each other, holding on to each other. And as I watched and as I heard people crying, people wailing, and people afraid, and so on, as you would expect, all of a sudden the light in the place started to get a little bit brighter, a little bit brighter. And before you know it, there were angels everywhere. Now, I do write about this experience in my book, and it was one of my books. I can't remember which one it is now. But anyway, get them all, read them all. Amazing stories, but it certainly is something that gives you hope. It's something that really it's an incredible experience for me. But it teaches, when you read the stories, you'll know, it teaches us that our angels are all around us, and when it is our time to go, they are there, and they come to collect us. They really do. Al, do you have a comment about that?
No, not right now.
Okay, you're just listening, are you?
Yes.
What on earth is there to say? Carolyn.
Nettie has a question.
Who?
Nettie.
Good morning.
Hawaii.
Good morning, Nettie.
Last week you referenced that in the spirit world people can go to school, etc. Does that mean the person's soul still evolves? Yes,
of course. We're not done. We're never done, are we? We're never done learning. We're never ever done. We're never done. Finding and discovering, and we're always ready to learn more, those of us who want to. So you might decide, no, I don't want to learn anything anymore, I'm done. But usually it's so exciting then, there's so much to see and so much to do that we can't help ourselves. Al, question.
Yes, we have a question from Nicole.
Right.
I'm having a hard time figuring out a career path in life. I know what I want to do, but don't know if what I want is what God wants. How do I let go and let God? Does the spirit world have advice?
Well, I certainly can tell you that Grey Eagle is giving advice straight away, because God, if we believe in God, if we connect with God and we trust in God, we know that He's going to lead us on the right path. And also, if we get onto the wrong path for whatever reason, we know that at some point He's going to haul us back. But as I say to people, we're driving in the car, right? And then you think you're going somewhere, you know where you're going, and oh gosh, now all of a sudden I'm lost. And I always smile at people who say I'm lost, because actually you never are, because you're always where you're supposed to be. And even if you're lost, if you look around you and pay attention, you'll discover that actually, there's a reason why you're in that place. It could be simply to just enjoy and to be. Excuse me, my puppy is driving me crazy here. Come on, get up. It could be that you're meant to enjoy the scenery. It could be that there's a particular energy there that you're meant to feel. So whenever you're lost, don't worry, because you never are. Grey Eagle's advice to you, my darling, is follow your heart. God will lead you, God will guide you. But if you're always worrying if you're going to be doing the right thing, you never do anything. And we're going to be talking, I think, a little bit about that tomorrow in Everything is Attitude, about how we, through fear, what if that's not what God wants me to do? You're afraid to do the wrong thing, or what if I try this and if it doesn't work? We're going to be talking about that tomorrow on the show with Chris, and Everything is Attitude, and everything is about attitude. And what Greg is saying to you specifically, darling, is just follow your heart. You know you can do it. You know exactly what it is you want to do. So do it. Go out and do it and stop procrastinating. That's my advice. Who's next?
Benny asks.
Who? Benny. Good morning, Benny.
Hello, Rosemary.
Hi.
Do you believe spells work?
Oh, well, I believe in magic. I teach all of my children about magic, and I know I've only got one grandson. I taught my daughter about magic. My friend Mary Lou has a little grandson, Gavin. I certainly teach him about magic. When he falls over, I always put him a little magic on his what does he call it? His boo-boo or something. Yeah, on the place where he hurts. I totally believe in magic. I also believe that it's possible that people can actually, let's say, cast a spell of a kind, and if somebody buys into that, or they believe it, it's that your attitude can actually make something come true, whether good or bad, in fact. And it's all about your attitude. So do I believe in magic? I do. Do I believe in spells? I laugh at my daughter. I tell her I'm going to put a spell on her when I'm up there. I'm going to put a spell on you, make you happy, happy, happy. I just wanted to be happy, happy, happy. Do I believe that if you believe in something enough, whether it is magic or whether it is a spell or whatever it is, I think that if you believe in something enough, you can make it happen. So I suppose, yes, I do. Right? Would that be the answer? Al?
So Laurie asks.
Good morning, Laurie. We're getting through a lot of questions here.
She says, good morning. My father died 23 years ago. I saw and really heard him about 3 months later. But a friend died recently, and I saw him the next day. What is the reason for such differences in time between my dad and my friend? Well,
I think it's a lot to do with how much more sensitive and much more aware we are, or you specifically, Laurie. I think you obviously, 20 some years ago, you probably were not nearly as sensitive or as aware of the fact that, not only, do we pass into this next life, that we don't actually die, but that we're all capable of sensing, feeling, hearing. And I think, that I think you have become much more sensitive and much more aware of, those in the spirit world, and therefore more open. So it's not that, I bet your father tried again and again and again to get through to you. It's not that they're not there. I say to people, look, it's a bit like our loved ones are standing in the spirit world, are standing behind this big pane glass window. They can see into us, and they try to call to us, but we don't listen for whatever reason. We can't listen. We're not even aware that they're there, and they're banging on the window. And I always say that I'm the vandal, because I'm the one who goes around breaking windows and allowing people to come in. And every one of us can actually do that. We can all be vandals. We can all break the windows. All we have to do is to be open and listening and paying attention. I think it's absolutely fantastic that you had this connection with with your friend. And I would say work on being more sensitive. Work on not being afraid to be more sensitive, and keep listening, darling, because you're doing really, really well. Carolyn.
Mary says.
Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, everyone. I'm deeply honored to be a part of this live program. Thank you from my heart for all the wonderful advice. What is the best way to explain St. Nicholas or Santa to children?
Oh, This is something from my heart. Mary, you caught me. I love Christmas. I love, 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 love Christmas. Of course, I love Christmas because it is the time that I celebrate my Saviour's birth. But I also love Christmas because it's just a time of joy, a time of laughter, a time of love, and a time of giving. And it's amazing how around the Christmas period, those of us who are reticent about sharing love, I'm not one of them, by the way, those who are reticent about, giving or sharing can often come out of their shell, because the atmosphere and the energy that surrounds us around the Christmas period is just amazing and wonderful and all the rest of it. What do I tell my grandson? Well, of course I tell him there is a Santa Claus, because there is, even if it's only in our imagination, and our imagination is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Our imagination can lead us to reality. There's a very, very fine line between what is real and what is imagined. So, I brought my child up with Santa. She brings her child up with Santa. We're big Santa people. He's 5.5 years old. The first person to tell him there isn't one will have to answer to me. I do know that at some point, hopefully when he's about 15, he'll be, he'll have left that magic behind, maybe. But I'm hoping he always retains the magic of Christmas, even if he gets to the point where he perhaps doesn't believe in Santa. But any little bit of magic, we talked about fairies. I'm a big magic person. I make up stories. I used to make up stories for my daughter, make up stories for my grandson. And those stories are always about magic. They're always about traveling. They're always about, I've written a beautiful story for my grandson, and it's called In the Land of Jello. And it's a beautiful, beautiful story, but it's filled with magic, Don't take magic away from your kids. I encourage it for as long as you can. That's my belief. Al, what do you think? Do you?
I think it's. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she's still, believing, and
Yay!
I think it's a beautiful thing, and just to see the joy and to, like you said, the kind of magic in their eyes when Christmas approaches, is an amazing thing. And why quell that? Why stop that before you have to?
Why destroy the magic? There's in a town local to us, there's always, every Christmas in the shopping mall there's a Santa Claus. And I always go and sit on his knee, and I always have someone take a photograph, and I always send it to my grandson. There's a fantastic app that you can get on your computer. Can't remember what it's called now. PN something about Santa Claus. And you can actually send in all the information about your children, and you can get on video. You can get Santa talking to your kids or your grandkids. It's a fantastic app. And you send in, we the first year we did it, one of the things when Reese was about 3 years old, he didn't want to share. So Santa sort of talked to Reese and said, now, Reese, we understand, you don't like to share, but we want you to be a good boy, and so on and so forth. It was magical. It's still magical. And we do that every year. We also have, the elf on the shelf. We have Reese's elf is called Alpha. Yes, I know, it's really weird, but anyway, and Alpha comes, and he moves around the house every morning. We have to look for him somewhere else. We see footprints on the kitchen counter, flour and sugar and all sorts of things spilled where he's a bit naughty sometimes. And always on Christmas Eve, Alpha leaves because he has to go back to Santa's workshop to help all the other elves to bring the kids toys. And he always leaves Reese, he leaves him a book, he leaves him a video, and he leaves him a beautiful pair of pajamas. That's what Alpha leaves in our house. However, just just to remind us all, we also in our house, we help, we take a family, and we go to the, you know, the local Sally Army or somewhere where they, you know, maybe have a family or not having such a good Christmas, and we play Santa for them. We play with the elves, and I make big, if there's 6 kids, we put up 6 big stacks of stuff. If there are 2 kids, we do the same for them. And we wrap the toys, and Santa miraculously appears on the doorstep. Wherever you can produce magic, especially where you know there is very little of it, if you could do that. If you start saving now, you don't have to spend a lot, you know, just, you know, some books. You can go to Walmart, for goodness sake, and get a whole load of stuff. And, you know, just think about what you're buying for these kids. And I always like to know the ages of the kids, and like to know the interest of the kids. And, you know, you can do that for a family. It's really not a hardship. Take a little bit away from your own kids. They won't miss it, and give it to other kids. But be an elf. Be an elf on the shelf for other people. What do you think to that, Al?
I think that's an amazing thing that you do. I think
not really. It's just a nice thing to do, right?
Listen, if everybody did that,
wouldn't that be great?
It would be amazing. No, it would be amazing. Yeah, and I think people try to make their kids grow up too fast sometimes, and they try to take the imagination away from them. I say let them imagine and be kids as long as possible.
Well, I do have to tell everyone that you are the most amazing father. You're one of the most amazing fathers I've ever met. And he has 3 fabulous children, wonderful kids, wonderful, wonderful kids. And they're bright and smart. If you allow your kids an imagination, and if you allow them to develop that imagination, their world is brighter, bigger, it opens up, and they are actually smarter for it too. Let's have another question.
Dean asks.
Good morning. Oh, I've already said good morning to you. Yeah, you've got a second question. Go ahead, darling.
More of a clarification.
Go for it. Yes, go for it.
What I was wondering was if the souls talk together after they leave the bodies at the same time.
Yes, they do. Yes, that was yes. I thought I made that clear, but obviously not. Not all, but you know, yes, it's possible. And you know, some are busy doing other things. So yes, you know, especially when you have that mass exodus, that you know, that it's an amazing sight to see. I can remember the first time I was witnessing a plane crash and witnessing all the people inside, and the amount of people who were making last-minute phone calls. The same with 9/11, last-minute phone calls to try to get to their families, just to say we love you, and you know, it's a very sad thing because we do take life for granted, which is why it's very, very important to me. I say to my grandson every single night, I love you. I say to my daughter every single day, I love you. If you don't show it, they don't know it. Don't presume your family know that you love them. Don't be afraid to say it. And if everybody lived their lives as if this was their last day on earth, because you know, for a lot of you out there, it just might be today. If you live your life as if it's the last day, make it the best, make it the kindest, make it the gentlest. You know, leave something good behind. Don't wait till the last minute. Leave something good behind. Al.
So Jamie asks a specific question about him, but do you feel I'll be doing mediumship work like you? And I would follow up with, how would somebody sensitive know that they are meant to sort of do mediumship work or healing work or whatnot?
Well, Jamie, I can't really answer that question because you say like me, and you know, we all work differently, and we all have different roles. What I'm going to suggest you do is you strive to be the best you can be at whatever chosen profession you have. I actually feel that you could be a really wonderful healer, and that you should put your energies towards that. And I'm only saying that because I'm always very nervous when people say, I'm not saying it about you, Jamie. You may, for all I know, and I don't know, just to clarify, for all I know, you are an amazing medium. I don't know. I don't know you. But I'm always nervous about mediumship, because we know that it's very easy to get it wrong. We know that there are people out there who just want to do it, but maybe can't or shouldn't. So if you are wanting to work as a spiritual medium, you've got to be tougher on yourself than anybody else will be on you, and you've got to be honest with yourself. You've got to, if you can't see or hear or sense on any particular day, you've got to say so. You don't try to fool yourself. Don't try to fool anybody else. And that's as much as I'm going to say about that. Carolyn.
Lori has a question.
Good morning.
My friend Deline recently received a message from a third party about the vision of an old beau who passed. Because someone has seen his spirit doesn't mean that he's not at rest, correct?
Correct. It actually might just mean he wants to pop in and say hello. He might be doing the rounds, but no. If you see someone in the spirit world, don't just jump to the conclusion that, you know, they're there because they've got unfinished business, or they're not at rest, or they're not at peace, or so on. It's very simple and easy. They just want to pop in and say hi. That's it. Al, a question.
Denise actually has a comment in regard to
who does?
Denise.
Okay, Denise, good morning.
In regard to Santa and children. She says, I think it is a beautiful transition when our children go from believing in Santa, who exists for them only to bring them gifts, to embracing the idea that they can be Santa and give to others. And that's the true magic of Christmas, giving to others. How wonderful of you and your family to think of others who are not as fortunate.
Well, you know, when the healing organization was going, and I was in Vermont at the time, I had a whole team, and every year we would take an entire family, and sometimes, well, they would take a family and I would take a family. And, you know, between us as a team, I mean, we would have big pillowcases. You used to be able to buy those big giant sort of Santa sacks. And we would get those, and we would fill those for the family. And I always, you know, we were only obliged to buy for the kids, but we would take a family, which meant that if there was a mother, we'd certainly get her some chocolate or a nice scarf or something, you know, something, or nice bar of soap. We'd always get popcorn and chocolates and stuff for the entire family to enjoy, as well as gifts for the kids. And if there was a father, we'd always, you know, get the same for him, maybe some soaps or some such, or a nice scarf, or what have you. We'd always make sure that everyone in the family had something to unwrap at Christmas. And we always would buy, you know, sort of like, you can get those big giant cans of popcorn, you can get big cans of cookies, and we didn't have to spend a fortune. You can get them cheap enough. But playing Santa or playing the elf, I like to think of myself as being the elf, the little elves, the little worker bees, who, you know, sort of buy and wrap. And the joy, I can remember one year I had a Spanish family, 3 little girls, 5, 7, and 10. And I went to a store, Marshall's actually, it's called, in the US, where they have all these fantastic things for really wonderful prices. And I bought them all the most gorgeous dresses, beautiful, beautiful party dresses, velvet and lace, and very inexpensive, believe it or not. And then I bought them some little shoes and socks. And so I am the one getting the joy out of doing these things. And, you know, when you're buying toys for kids and you try, you know, you found out what it is they like, what hobbies they like, the joy of just going shopping. And I always insisted that I was the one who did the shopping, which wasn't really fair, because what I was saying is, I'm going to have the most pleasure out of this, and I did, and I do. So please, you know, be an elf if you can. Be an elf. If you think about it, you've got a few weeks to Christmas. Be an elf if you can. Carolyn?
The Untubed asks, is there any need of food or drink or anything human in the spirit world?
I'm going to call you Tubby. Did I already say that last week? What is she asking?
Is there any need of food or drink or anything human in the spirit world?
Well, there are beautiful streams that you can play and splash in, and you can drink the water there. I've never actually seen anyone sit down to chicken and rice or a plate of steak and chips. So no, I don't think, you know, on a physical level we need to feed. It's all about feeding our souls. It's all about feeding our spirit. It's all about, you know, being more of who we can be. We have left the physical behind, so we don't need that physical sustenance that we do while we're still here. Our question.
Jihan asks,
We're trying to get as many questions in as we can, you know.
I have a friend who passed away 5 years ago. Since we reconnected decades after we lost touch, we spoke daily. I'm sure he wants to tell me something. I'm in Egypt. He was in Costa Rica. Can you help?
My temptation is to say no, but actually, Gregor has a slightly different take than me. Here we go again. And I think you are right that perhaps your friend does want to tell you something. And it's a very simple message. For whatever reason, he feels that you are restricted, that you're not being quite yourself, or you feel that you can't be yourself. And he's just encouraging you to open up and to be who you want to be, not what you think others want you to be, or not how other people perceive you, but to be yourself, because you are just more than enough. I hope you understand that message there, and there we are. Carolyn.
Robert wrote in, how can we integrate higher consciousness and the power of intention into our daily lives?
Oh my gosh, we're getting some good questions this morning. Good morning, Robert. How can we integrate
higher consciousness,
that higher level of consciousness, and integrate it into our daily lives? Well, it's very simple, because through meditation, through being aware, and through lifting your level of consciousness to a point where you're able to become much more sensitive, much more aware, because that's what about lifting that consciousness is about. You are able to see more, you're able to connect more, you're able to be more of who you are, you're able to connect much more with your own spirit, your own soul. You're able, as you raise your level of consciousness, you become much more aware of the heartbeat of your soul, and how that heart beats, and what you then do with that heartbeat. When you're doing all of this, and you're doing these exercises, and you're sort of bringing yourself into this state of consciousness, a higher level of consciousness, what you're doing is you're becoming much more aware of your own self, and you're becoming much more aware of the spirit world, and you're becoming much more aware also of those people around you. So it follows. You don't have to do anything specific to integrate, because the way you are and who you are, you're more sensitive, and so therefore you're acting and reacting to people in a much more sensitive and in a much more loving way, and a much more knowing way. So once you start to raise the level of consciousness, that integration happens automatically. Al, you know a little bit about this, wouldn't you say, being a student of mine, wouldn't you say that is true when you start to raise your level of consciousness, that you all of a sudden do become much more aware of those around you and what's going on in your daily life?
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. And once you kind of it gets kind of the cloudiness away, and you feel, hear, and see things that were around you and that you had the capability of doing,
yeah.
You just weren't focused on.
It's almost when you raise your level of consciousness, what you're doing is you're taking the blinkers off. You know, you can see much more clearly, and therefore you act much differently. You treat other people much differently, better. You're already, you know, just the act of raising your level of consciousness means that you become much more aware, and you integrate all of that knowledge and that sensitivity and that light that begins to shine within you, bright, you know, within you, that you share that. It's an automatic thing. It just happens automatically. Carolyn, so that was your question. Al, do we have any comments from anyone? Do we have anyone wanting to say anything but not specifically asking a question?
Starshine just mentioned that she will send you the information on the surgery as soon as she knows.
Right.
Jamie said thank you so much for that advice. Any other comments I see?
Carolyn, do you see any other comments? All right, then let's have a couple more questions then. Do we have a couple more questions, or are we done?
I think we're pretty close to done, but I actually would like to, in regard to Jamie, what he was talking about, how would somebody know, like if you are very sensitive and you are becoming more in tune, how would you know if you were meant to be more of a healer? How would you know if you were meant to be more of what you are as a medium and healer? How would somebody kind of know that or get the feel of that as they went through this process of kind of getting clearer in their thoughts and more connected to energy?
Well, it is a question of, you know, you know, there is an inner knowing, there is an inner knowledge. You start to connect with your soul. You start to listen to the heartbeat of your soul. You start to become more aware of not only your sensitivity, but the sensitivity of other people. And, you know, again, it's a bit of, you know, trusting God and he will lead you, because certainly God led me to what I'm doing now. Christ had a great deal to do with what I'm doing now, and specifically the healing part of things. But I was encouraged. I was pushed a bit, never into doing anything that I didn't want to do. But you just have to be critical of yourself. You know, people say to me, I don't believe in what you do, or people are critical of it, or, you know, sort of skeptical of it, which of course I understand. There's no one more skeptical than me. There's no one more critical of the work that I do than me. If I don't do it 100% to how I, you know, how I really can sit back and say that was good. I did the best that I could do there. But not only that, it was the best that they could get. And if you can't say that, and if you can't do that, don't do it at all. Don't do it unless you're totally confident that, you know, that what you're doing is the right thing. When you start as a healer or as a medium, you have an enormous responsibility to other people. What you do touches people's hearts, and it changes people's lives. Don't do it casually. Don't do it just because you want to do it, because nothing was further from my mind. Just, if anybody out there thinks that I went into this role willingly, think again. I came into this work kicking and screaming. I didn't want to do it. I didn't think I was capable of it, and it wasn't something I'd ever even considered. So just, you know, take your time about it and be critical, be skeptical, and ask God to guide you, and he will. Put your trust in him. He will. Let go and let God. There's no magic remedy as to how do I let go and let God. There's no magic to it. You just you decide one day, and there it is, and it's done. You've let go and you've let God, and you've taken on the path that you should be on. All right. If I can just remind people, tomorrow at 6 o'clock Standard Eastern Time, we have our Everything is Attitude. Al and I will be joining with Chris, who's coming on the show to talk about, I think, about fear.
How does one stay strong yet gentle, kind, and loving?
There you are. So how does one stay strong yet gentle, kind, and loving? I asked her to send me that, and she's apparently just did that just now. So we're going to be talking about that, and how do we say strong and yet hold on to that gentleness and that loving, because a lot of people think saying strong means putting yourself behind a barrier or trying to protect yourself, you know, so that you know, especially if you're a sensitive person. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be giving recipes. I'm going to be giving you a little recipe as to how to say strong but remain soft and lovely and cuddly and squishy all at the same time. So we're going to do that. If you'll find that on my Facebook page. Please, if you would like to participate, if you have any questions or you want to talk about anything, or you think that you've got anything to do with attitude, negative or positive, or you've got a story to tell, info@everythingisattitude.com. Are you amazed, Al? info@everythingisattitude.com. Please email there. Al checks on it on a regular basis. If you need anything from me, rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and all of those other wonderful, wonderful things. Check out my Rosemary in the Kitchen. Oh gosh, I have to tell you, the book is so close to being done, so close to being done. So until we see you again next week with lots and lots of questions, thank you for participating. Thank you for joining me on the show. Thank you, my darlings, for all of those. We did have some really great questions today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I hope to see you all again next week for our live show. And if you can't join us live, you know, just watch us anyway. Until we see you again next week, please, please, please have a very, very, very blessed day. All I need to do is find that little arrow. There it is. I've got you.